Welcome, if you dare. You've stumbled into a place where the lights flicker just a little too long, where shadows move when nothing should, and where the line between our world and something far darker grows dangerously thin. Beyond the edge of what we understand, something waits. Something watches. Tonight, we pull back that curtain and step into the unknown together. What you're about to hear are stories that will crawl beneath your skin and settle there, refusing to leave. A woman alone in a house that breathes. A man haunted by a voice that knows too much. A group of friends who walked into a forest and came back, changed. These are not simple ghost stories. These are encounters with something deeply, fundamentally wrong. So turn down the lights, find somewhere comfortable, and whatever you do, try not to listen too closely to the sounds around you right now. It begins. Our first story begins with Sarah, a young woman eager for a fresh start, who recently moved into an old Victorian house sitting quietly on the outskirts of a small, forgotten town. The house looked beautiful in the listing photos, but standing inside it felt entirely different. The floors groaned beneath her every step, as though the house itself was breathing, protesting her presence. The lights flickered without reason, casting long, dancing shadows across the peeling wallpaper. But strangest of all was the cold. Not the kind that comes from an open window or a broken heater. This cold was different. It followed her. From the kitchen to the hallway, up the staircase and into the bedroom, an invisible chill pressed against her skin like unseen fingers. Sarah told herself old houses simply had character. She unpacked her boxes, brewed some tea, and tried to ignore the growing feeling that something in that house was already watching her settle in. At first, Sarah told herself it was nothing. The scratches that appeared on the bedroom walls overnight, she blamed on the old house settling. The way her keys would move from the kitchen counter to the bathroom sink, she convinced herself she was simply forgetful from exhaustion. But then came the whispers. In the dead of night, somewhere between 2 and 3 in the morning, she would hear it. A faint, breathy voice curling through the darkness, calling her name. Sarah. Just that. Nothing more. She pressed it down, buried it under the weight of logic. Moving is stressful, she reminded herself. Sleep deprivation plays tricks on the mind. But the scratches grew deeper. Her furniture shifted further. And the whispers, once barely audible, began sounding closer each night, as though whatever was speaking had been slowly, patiently, moving toward her all along. One afternoon, while prying up a loose board near the hallway, Sarah's fingers brushed against something cold and leather-bound, a journal. She carried it to the kitchen, hands trembling as she opened the cracked cover. Inside were weeks of desperate entries written by the house's previous resident, a man named Thomas Ellery. Each page described the same terrifying experience. A shadowy figure appearing at the foot of his bed every single night at exactly 3 a.m. Thomas wrote of its hollow eyes, its impossible stillness, and the suffocating silence it brought with it. Night after night the entries grew more frantic, more unhinged. Then came the final page. Just 4 words scratched deeply into the paper. It found me. Sarah checked the date. Her blood ran cold. It was the exact night Thomas Ellery vanished without a trace, leaving behind nothing but this journal and unanswered questions that now lived inside her walls. The clock on Sarah's nightstand read 3 a.m. exactly when her eyes snapped open. At the foot of her bed stood a figure. Tall, impossibly dark, darker than the surrounding shadows, as if it was absorbing the very light around it. Sarah could not move. Her body refused every command her mind screamed. The shadow stood completely still at first, just watching her with a presence so heavy it felt like the air had been drained from the room. Then, slowly, it reached toward her. A long, shapeless arm extended across the bed, inch by terrifying inch. She felt a cold so deep it burned, and the moment it made contact, something inside her broke free. She screamed. The lights flickered violently and flooded the room with harsh brightness. Nothing was there. Sarah sat alone, drenched in cold sweat, trembling uncontrollably, staring at the empty space where it had stood, desperately asking herself one question. Was it real? Not all monsters are bound to crumbling walls and haunted hallways. Some horrors are far more personal, far more relentless. They do not wait for you to walk through a cursed door. They find you, wherever you are, whatever you do, no matter how far you run. Sarah's nightmare was tied to a place. But what happens when the terror has no address? What happens when it has your number? Meet Daniel, an ordinary man living an ordinary life in a modest apartment in the city. He worked late hours, kept to himself, and valued his quiet evenings. But roughly 3 weeks ago, everything changed. It started small, the way most horrors do. Late at night, well past midnight, his phone would ring. Unknown number. No name. No location. Just silence waiting on the other end, patient and deliberate. At first, Daniel almost laughed it off. Static. Just dead air and the faint, barely audible sound of breathing on the other end. He told himself it was a wrong number, a bad connection, maybe some kid playing pranks. He hung up and went back to sleep. But the calls kept coming. Every night, a little past midnight, that same unknown number would light up his screen. And each time he answered, something had changed. The breathing grew steadier, more deliberate, almost patient. Then came the whispers. You had black coffee this morning. You took the long route to work. You stopped at the corner store and bought a newspaper. Daniel's blood ran cold. Every detail was precise. Every word was accurate. Whoever was on the other end of that line had not just been watching him. They had been studying him, memorizing him, cataloging his every single move with terrifying, calculated precision. Daniel wasted no time. He contacted his phone carrier, filed a report, and even walked into the local police station to get help tracing the calls. Officers ran the number through every database available. The result was always the same. Unregistered. Untraceable. As if the number simply did not exist. The calls kept coming. Then one night, the voice broke its usual pattern. Instead of whispering his routine, it said something different. Something that made Daniel's blood run cold. Look out your window. His hands trembled as he slowly crossed the room and pulled back the curtain. The street below was quiet, bathed in the pale glow of a single street light. And there it was. A figure. Standing completely motionless on the sidewalk directly across the street. No movement. No reaction. Just standing there, head tilted upward, staring directly at Daniel's apartment window. Night after night, the figure crept closer. First across the street, then at the edge of his building, then standing directly beneath his window. Daniel barely slept anymore, surviving on coffee and raw, suffocating fear. He checked his locks obsessively, drew every curtain shut, and refused to answer any more calls. But the damage was already done. Then one evening, while sitting frozen on his couch, he noticed something sliding slowly beneath his front door. A folded piece of paper. With trembling hands, he picked it up and read the 4 words scrawled inside. You should not have answered. The realization hit him like ice water flooding his lungs. By picking up that phone, he had acknowledged it, responded to it, invited it into his world. Whatever this entity was, it did not break in. Daniel had willingly opened the door himself, and so Daniel was left with a truth far more terrifying than any ghost, that some things, once invited in, never leave. But our night is far from over. The darkness has one final story to tell, and this one does not take place within the walls of a house or the shadows of a city apartment. No, this horror lives somewhere far older, far quieter, and far more patient. Deep within the heart of a dense, ancient forest, 4 friends, Jake, Mara, Tyler, and Marcus, packed their bags for what they believed would be a simple, carefree camping weekend. The first hours were everything they had hoped for. Laughter around crackling campfires, stories shared beneath a canopy of stars. But as midnight crept closer and the fire burned lower, Mara stood up slowly, her face pale, and pointed toward the surrounding trees. Every single one had strange symbols carved deep into the bark. At first, nervous laughter broke the tension. Someone joked that maybe they had just gotten turned around. But then Jake pulled out the compass, and every single person went quiet. The needle was spinning. Not drifting, not wobbling, spinning wildly like something beneath the earth was pulling at it. They tried retracing their steps, but every path looked identical, every tree a mirror of the last. Then the sound started. Low at first, barely audible beneath the rustling leaves, but unmistakable. Voices. Their voices. Repeating conversations from earlier that evening, the jokes around the campfire, the arguments about tent placement, word for word, tone for tone. But no one was speaking. The forest was speaking for them. They stood completely still, hearts hammering, as their own laughter echoed back from somewhere deep between the trees, hollow and wrong, like a recording played through something that had never learned what laughter actually meant. Marcus grabbed his flashlight and stepped into the darkness before anyone could stop him. The remaining three called after him, their voices swallowed whole by the dense trees. Minutes passed. Then more minutes. Silence. They went after him together, sweeping their flashlights across the undergrowth, shouting his name until their throats burned. The forest gave nothing back except shadows, and that unsettling stillness that had been growing heavier all night. When they finally reached Marcus's tent, they stopped cold. Everything was exactly as he had left it. His sleeping bag neatly unrolled, his boots placed carefully beside the entrance, his phone sitting on top of his backpack, screen still lit, battery at 87%. No signs of struggle, no footprints leading away, no torn fabric, no scattered belongings, nothing. Marcus had simply ceased to exist, leaving behind every trace of himself except himself. None of them slept. They huddled together in the center of the tent, listening to slow, deliberate footsteps circling them hour after hour. No one spoke. No one dared move. The footsteps never stopped, never stumbled, just kept circling with inhuman patience through the endless dark. When pale dawn light finally crept through the trees, the footsteps vanished. Somehow, impossibly, the trail appeared right where it should have been all along. They ran. Branches whipped their faces, lungs burning, hearts hammering until they finally burst through the tree line into open daylight. Gasping, one of them turned back. Marcus was standing at the edge of the forest. Just standing there. Still. Silent. Staring directly at them with an expression completely void of recognition. But his eyes were entirely white. No pupils, no irises. Just blank, hollow white. As if whatever had been Marcus was simply no longer there. Sarah never slept soundly again. Daniel stopped answering unknown calls, but the feeling of being watched never truly left him. And Marcus, well, his friends never spoke about what they saw at the tree line. Not to anyone. 3 stories. 3 very different horrors. Yet they all share something deeply unsettling in common. None of them involved a creature you could name. None of them offered a clean explanation or a satisfying resolution. What made each story truly terrifying was not what was seen, but what was left unanswered. The scratching with no source. The voice that knew too much. The eyes that had seen something no human should ever witness. Horror does not always announce itself with fangs or claws. Sometimes it arrives quietly, slipping beneath the surface of ordinary life, leaving its victims forever altered, forever haunted, forever searching for answers that will never come. And there you have it. 3 stories that will linger long after you turn off your screen. But here is what makes them truly terrifying. These tales are not born purely from imagination. They are inspired by real accounts, shared by real people. People just like you, who experienced something they could never fully explain. Perhaps you have felt that cold draft that follows you. Perhaps you have heard your name whispered in an empty room. Perhaps something has found you too. If you have your own horror experience, something that kept you awake, something you cannot explain, share it in the comments below. We want to hear every chilling detail. If you enjoyed tonight's descent into darkness, please like this video and subscribe for more terrifying content delivered straight to you. Stay safe out there, stay aware, and whatever you do, do not look behind you.